Welcome to the Hold Maneuver podcast. I'm Mark Ribbert.
And I'm Mike Soren. We're two hardworking dads trying to immerse ourselves into Star Wars and fit it into our very busy lives.
If this is your first time listening in the short form Star Wars podcast, we'll share our thoughts on different topics from a galaxy far, far away.
What does your Canadian friend cooking dinner for you have in common with the Empire from Star Wars?
Canadians and the Empire. What do they have in common?
Well, no, Empire's not nice. They have good health care.
They wear their police wear the same style jacket and the peak coat jackets.
Palpatine.
Nice.
Wow.
And now I'm hungry.
Now I'm hungry.
Well, and with that, we would like to welcome back our friend Canadian Justin. I like to affectionately call him. This
Canadian
time,
Justin.
How you doing, Justin?
I'm doing great. It's good to be back. I was going to go with the Ola again just to throw things off, but
Continuity purposes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're from Quebexico, so it's always sunny in Quebexico. Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to be back, and it's good to be here. So,
or I guess I should call you Quebexican, Justin, now instead.
I mean, I do have on my Twitter profile is that I'm from Quebexico City, Quebexico, Canada.
Nice.
So
that's one of those if you know you know.
If you know you know.
Hashtag things.
Go back to the Kenobi speculation episode.
Yeah, it seems like every episode you're on, we talk about Kenobi in some way. But yeah, this episode is episode 22 of the podcast. Our main topic this week is about the Shadows of the Empire, like multimedia project, as it was known back in the day, back in the mid 90s.
I was there, and I don't remember that.
I was there, and I remember collecting it.
I don't remember it being multimedia. I just remember the book.
Yeah, I remember the book and that there was an N64 game. I don't remember any of the other stuff. But yeah, this topic was actually suggested to us by you, Justin.
Yeah.
And then this week we're also in trying to kind of focus more on what are our whole synopsises that we just read off to you a few minutes ago here at the beginning about us, me and Mike being dads. We're going to try to incorporate some kind of dad or fatherly story from the past whatever week it was when we record this in your father story time section. We'll also talk about some of the D23 Expo news that came out from this past 2 weeks. And then we will talk about Shadows of the Empire as well as the Disney Plus documentary Obi-Wan Kenobi, A Jedi's Return. So with that, I will let Mike take it away with his I Am Your Father story time.
This past week, I truly wished I had both the Jedi power of mind control and or the Vulcan nerve pinch from Star Trek. It was a week where I needed more, where my kid was just full of energy, not just off the wall, and I was just like, oh my God, you need to stop right now. Because we had little to no babysitting because my whole family outside of me got COVID. My wife's whole family was just unavailable for vacation reasons. So, and daycare was unavailable to school because they all had COVID, the teachers and all that.
Goddamn.
It was just a long, long week. And I either needed force mind control, force speed, or the Vulcan nerve pinch to just, you got to go to sleep right now.
I heard Anakin has a good daycare nursery. He's pretty good with younglings, right?
It's all half off.
Yeah.
Slash prices.
yeah, some burning hot savings.
No sandboxes though.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah. There's no sandboxes at his daycare facility. Uh,
Are they
yeah,
cutting prices all the time on it too?
They
yeah,
are.
always, always. Uh, it's called the Are You an Angel sale?
You are now.
But yeah, so yeah, I was with that whole kind of era many in a galaxy a long time
Mark's
ago,
original trilogy. I'm prequel in fatherhood.
and Justin is like the Dr. Aphra comic book storylines. He's like the offshoot
I'm off.
that
there's there's
that doesn't want
there's
kids.
no fatherhood here.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, with mine, it's just like I have a almost 17-year-old son, so it's dealing with like all of that kind of late teenage years boy, as we all were late teens boys at one time. So like knowing what he's dealing with, that kind of stuff, and just trying to help him out with
You're his
different things.
You're Obi-Wan to his Anakin right now. There you
Kind of,
go.
sort of. Yeah.
Just
Well, hopefully that turns out better. Hopefully I don't leave him uh lying on the floor with three of his limbs cut off and him yelling "I hate you" at me.
it could be worse. You could end up being the Qui-Gon to his Obi-Wan,
True.
and then that's just you on the ground there.
Yeah, you're just
Yeah.
cutting. You're the only one who dies of a stab to the stomach in all of Star Wars.
Although I'd almost rather have that, because then at least he goes on to do really cool stuff.
He goes on to have a
And
son and cut his arms and legs off.
yeah, and I'm just there as a ghost to be like, what took you so long? As we walk off into the Tatooine uh, sunset. But speaking of that and Tales of the Jedi, uh, this past week we had the D23 Expo in Anaheim. None of us were there, so
Thanks,
that.
Disney.
Yeah, I know I did apply
I applied
for
3 different ways.
yeah, so uh they didn't want us there. So but
Subscription
anyways,
canceled. Not really.
we're also going to kind of do like a new thing with the news, to kind of trying to cut down on time with some of these episodes when we can, when they're not episode recaps of the Disney Plus shows. So this is kind of be a lightning round with kind of some of our favorite things that came from this news, but not spending a whole lot of time on it. So after spending all that time explaining about how we're not going to spend a lot of time on it, the first trailer that they played was for Tales of the Jedi, which is almost kind of like a anthology continuation of some stories from the Clone Wars animated series. In here, we're going to get some backstories of like a younger Count Dooku, younger Qui-Gon Jinn, some stuff with Ahsoka in there as well. I'm definitely looking forward to this because it'll be Yaddle is also going to be in there, so that should be interesting. Justin's got a shirt with her son on it right now, because we know that Grogu is definitely Yoda and Yaddle's offspring, and Yoda's just an absentee dad.
Just like mine.
Oh man. But yeah.
There's your
So
father's story.
there you go. But yeah, was there anything from this trailer? Did you guys watch this trailer at all? And is there anything that stuck out from it, like as one thing before we move on to the next trailer?
Nothing in particular. Just it looked like it's gonna be a badass show.
I at the very first glimpses of it, I was just like, I don't want more Ahsoka. I don't want pre-Ahsoka because we're getting the show. We've had so much Ahsoka, and then I'm seeing that it's going to be paralleled to Dooku, and I'm just like, okay, now I'm sold.
Oh, yeah. And I saw some theories that this will kind of show like the downfall of Dooku to like the dark side too, and it might also explain why Yaddle was in episode one but wasn't in episode two.
She's
So we might
pregnant.
see, yeah,
Shit.
or Dooku killed her because he's a jerk. Uh, the other trailer they played the final trailer for Andor, which I am I actually avoided because at like this point they've had like two or three trailers and like I don't want to see any more footage from the show until it comes out next week. I'm already gonna watch it. I don't need to see any more trailers for it. But we will link the trailer for it in the show notes. So if you want to watch it, you can watch it. But
I don't think it
it's
showed
there.
anything really new or
Yeah.
spoiler-ish.
I did see Michael McKean make a joke. He's like, I'm really looking forward to this new Star Wars show on Disney Plus, but I feel like they should have came up with a name rather than go with and
Or
or. So it was like, oh, that was a nice, clever joke there, Michael McKean, Annette O'Toole's husband. Uh, but the other thing that they saw there too, I'm holding up the last trailer until the last thing in here was
Audience
the
would not have known that, Mark.
the first look at Jude Law in John Watts' Skeleton Crew. So I remember like a lot of people were thinking that like he was probably going to be playing Thrawn in this, which he apparently is not, if at least going by this first image, because he's not blue. Um, unless he's using that technology that we saw Obi-Wan use in the Clone Wars, where he's, essentially changing his face so that he doesn't look blue.
so Jude Law is in whiteface for this.
Yeah. That's only okay in a galaxy far, far away a long time ago.
White
They
face
just
is okay anywhere.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's the other way
especially
around.
if you're Canadian, Justin.
I mean, I would just blend in with the snow. It's camouflage. It's
Yeah,
defense.
that's how it works. Canada be like just goes up next to the snowbank. We're like, where'd he go? He's gone.
Snow troopers
It's
everywhere.
it's very uncomfortable when you have to strip to do that, though.
Well, get frostbite where you got to get frostbite.
Yeah.
And the last bit of news before we talk about the last trailer was they finally confirmed who's going to be playing a live action version of Ezra Bridger in the Ahsoka series, which is going to be Aman Esfandi, which I don't think I've seen him in anything before, but the picture uh, that they posted with like this news, he definitely looks like, I mean, he straight up looks like, hey, if Ezra grew up and was about 10 or 15 years older than when we last saw him, that's definitely what he would look like. So I am definitely excited about this too, because the other thing I'm wondering too is, I mean, at this point, Ahsoka is essentially just like a sequel to the Rebels animated series. It seems like for a lot of us, because there's a live action Sabine in there. We know there's a live action Hera in there. I believe they said Chopper was in it too. So
Yeah.
the only person that's not in it that would be around to be in it still would be Zeb, and that would be interesting to see a live action version of Zeb. And like I know that you haven't seen Rebels, Mike, but do you know what Zeb looks like?
Zeb.
Yeah. So like Zeb is what like the original design for like a Wookiee was going to be for like
I'm looking
Chewbacca.
at him right now.
Yeah, so that's what Chewbacca was originally going to look like in A New Hope before they went, like the walking dog.
He
Uh,
looks like a guy I used to work with.
but yeah, that should be interesting if they do a live action version of Zeb. And then what'd be cool is they just had Stephen Bloom do the voice still if they're just gonna have, because I would assume that would just be somebody like in makeup or or CG at that point for the character. Uh, but I'm definitely, this makes me more excited for that. I know at one point they had said that Mena Massoud, who had played Aladdin in the recent live action Aladdin film, had auditioned for it at one point, but it looks like Iman Esfandi has gotten the role.
He responded by saying, Amon looks just like him, so there's no way I had a chance, I believe.
Yeah. But so the last bit of news was they debuted the season 3 teaser trailer for The Mandalorian at D23. And apparently, like, so this is a different trailer than what they showed at Celebration, but it's very similar to like some of the same footage that they showed there. But I guess this one's a little bit shorter and a little bit tighter cut for it. What did you guys think of the Mandalorian season 3 teaser?
I mean,
Off.
I was already excited for it, so it just made me more excited.
We are
Oh,
not
you
going to
just
be lacking for Mandalorians.
okay.
No. And watching Clerks 3 made me even want to watch Mandalorian all over again because of references to it in that. So
Oh, nice.
added to it.
What I thought was interesting about this too is that like this teaser trailer almost kind of works like it's like, hey, if you didn't watch Book of Boba Fett, here's some stuff that happened in
Right.
episodes that were important to the Mandalorian that are here in this trailer. And I also think it looks like he also has R4
Yeah.
from like better known as the droid that Owen
Almost bought.
almost bought, but then had a faulty motivator. So they ended up with R2 and 3PO instead. Uh, the only thing about this season that I don't think I'm gonna like is that there's a shot in here of like those Kowachian lizard monkeys like all in a tree.
I thought that was so cool, though.
Well, the only reason I don't think I'm gonna like it is that freaking Salacious Crumbs laugh annoys the crap out of me. Which I think is the point, obviously, but like
Yeah.
anytime Salacious B. Crumb laughs in Return of the Jedi, it just like annoys the ever living crap out of me. So if like there's like a full tree of just like a bunch of them, I don't even know what you call a bunch of Quachian lizard monkeys together in a tree, like because like a murder of crows, a gaggle of geese, a hurt like
The
what's
question
a
is, does this universe have a name for it? Did they go that far?
yeah, I bet they did.
I believe
And
it's a Salacious B toast.
there you go. It's a salacious herd. Uh,
I mean, a
but
group of
yeah,
monkeys is called a troop.
well,
So,
there you go. Maybe it's a salacious troop. There you go. Or the crumb troop, the bee troop,
or a barrel.
I like a
a
barrel of
barrel,
crumbs.
a barrel of crumbs. There you go. That sounds like a podcast name. Barrel of crumbs coming
But
soon.
that'd be like if you guys did a podcast all about like sourdough bread.
Be like, or this is what we ate. Can you tell what it was
It'd be
just
a
from how
food
we
podcast.
describe
Yeah.
it? Although Tom Cavanaugh and who's it, Hal Sparks? Tom Cavanaugh and another person actually like that do like a podcast where they just like eat snacks and like
Oh,
the
it's
whole
Michael Ian Black, isn't it?
oh yeah, Michael Ian Black. I don't want why Hal Sparks, Michael Ian Black, they're kind of interchangeable.
They're all the same.
Yeah, all us white dudes look alike. But yeah, so from there, that is all our news from the
Well, before
past
we
week.
get going, I just had a question on Mandalorians.
All right.
They're called Mandalorians because they're from Mandalore, right?
No.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Uh-oh. See? Not the only one.
Mandalorians are called Mandalorians because there was the head Mandalore person that created like the religion, and it was a completely different like race than
Oh
the
yeah,
humanoid race that we've
from
seen.
Knights
Okay.
of the Old Republic,
Yeah.
Mandalore.
So in theory, if Mando gets reaccepted into this religion, Grogu could become a Mandalorian.
Yes.
So
Because
you could
he's a
have him in the Yoda-esque Mandalore armor, Beskar there, with the ears
yeah.
and whatnot.
I have a feeling the final image of season 3 is going to be like Grogu wearing essentially like a Mandalorian armor, and it's gonna cut to it, and it's just gonna do 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 do, and then cut to black.
And then season 4, Din is dead, and we go
Yeah.
with Grogu doing the bounty hunting.
And he's the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
See, this entire time we thought the Mandalorian was Din.
But it's
But
been
the
Grogu.
Mandalorian is actually the friends
See,
we made along the way.
there you go.
Yeah.
But so without further ado, that brings us to our main topic. And I'm actually this week going to hand over the reins of this to Justin, as he
All the
to me and
power.
Mike is definitely unlimited power. Is the expert of the Shadows of the Empire multimedia project. So we'll talk about that for a bit, and then I don't know if either of you guys get a chance to watch it, but I watched the Obi-Wan Kenobi a Jedi's Return documentary last
Not
night
yet.
as well. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll just talk about that briefly here at the end after we talk about the Shadows of the Empire. So with further ado, take it
Okay.
away, Justin.
So, like most of us Star Wars fans, we grew up in the 80s, 90s, and all that kind of stuff. At least the ones that like to talk about it on the internet. I remember being very impacted by the Shadow of the Empire series as the toy franchise first, when it came out, as that Kenner re-released, had all like the original movies when they were being re-released, and then they did this, and it was just cool packaging. It had the purple lightsaber on it instead, and you got introduced to all the cool new characters. And I was looking at the list of the Kenner figures, and I was just like, yeah, I had every single one of these growing up, which might
And
not have been good.
I just realized recently when I was like doing some research for us doing this episode that the Boba Fett action figure I have, which I've thought this like for years was like a Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi Boba Fett
Was not.
it's a Shadows of the Empire Boba Fett action figure, because I was looking at it and it's like that exact same
It's
like modeled from that.
the side
But
pose kind of one.
yeah. So I was like,
And
oh,
that
interesting.
came with IG-88.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, because they did the dual packs.
Yeah. That also came with one of the comics of as like a teaser version of the comics for that time too. And then they had Chewbacca and Bounty Hunter disguise with like a vibro axe and blaster. And I really liked that Chewbacca because he had like a weird crew cut to him.
Oh yeah,
And
oh yeah, like that flat top.
Flat top.
Yeah, the flat top, and then like a weird cyber eye patch. And
Oh
I
yeah.
remember him. Yeah.
yeah, then that's when they also gave us the Leia Bounty Hunter disguise to Luke in an Imperial Guard disguise, which
Oh yeah.
you never see an Imperial Guard look like Luke's Imperial Guard ever.
I remember with the book, because like in fifth grade or so, I
Yeah.
remember, like, no one can see this because this week isn't video, but I remember like I've had this book since 1995 or so. It's got like my phone number and address from when I was in fifth grade in here. But I remember that was like my first thing. I was like, oh wait, you can have a lightsaber that's not green or blue or red.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was cool that that Luke had this like cool like gold or like yellow lightsaber in Shadows of the Empire. And I remember like there's a guy that we went to school with, Josh Borsity.
Mm-hmm.
I remember us having like this whole conversation with him about how you pronounced Prince Shizor's name.
I don't remember that.
For some reason that specifically stuck out, just because like I was one of the things I was watching to like catch up on stuff about Shadows of the Empire before we did this. Like anytime the dude said Prince Caesar, like kept getting a flashback to fifth grade with it. I was like, yep, that's how you say his name. That's how I thought you said it in fifth grade.
Did
Not
you know?
Caesar.
Did you know in the Star Wars cookbook. There is a recipe for a Prince Caesar salad.
Well, there you
Oh
go.
man.
So
I didn't even know there was a cookbook.
yeah,
Of course there's a cookbook. They sell everything with the Star Wars.
Oh yeah, I'm not surprised there's a cookbook. I just didn't know there was one.
I'm assuming there's a page for Wookiee cookies.
I hope so.
If there's a Prince Caesar salad,
Yeah, there's got to be
Yoda
Wookiee
yogurt.
cook.
Yeah. Well, Yoda yogurt, that gets into like a whole kind of snake eating its own tail of Spaceballs at that point.
Yeah.
But I'll let you get
There's
back
a
to
specific Wookiee cookies cookbook. So there you
Oh,
go.
there you go.
There you go. But it was just like a really cool. The Shadows of the Empire was just this cool time where they introduced another story in between Strike Back and Return of the Jedi, because they took off Han Solo from it, and then they gave us Dash Rendar as the new scoundrel to be.
Yeah.
And I think I personally really loved Dash Rendar as a character. I remember also watching a friend's dad play the Shadows of the Empire PC game. And that's where I first saw that you could have different like lightsaber colors, and I thought that was really cool too. But just going around through that and seeing that and getting to explore different aspects of Star Wars that I just never thought about, like video games like that, not a thing. And then you'd always see the books at the library or stuff like that, and then they put out a soundtrack for a book series. Like who
Oh,
does that? But it just worked out for it. It was a way for them to do a movie release without a movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because this
and
came out in '96, like just before the special edition trilogy.
Yeah.
I remember when the prequels were announced, getting into an argument with someone that they thought it was going to be about Shadows of the Empire, and I was like, no, Lucas didn't write those. Why would he make a movie about that? I was adamant that Lucas had nothing to do with it, and then he had to pay billions of dollars to get the rights to it to make it, and he would never do that. And I just remember I'm just surprised how so wrong I was.
Okay.
But you're still right that they didn't make a Shadows
True.
of the Empire movie
True.
at that time.
But
Yeah, I like how the whole like tag or like idea of this was like the movie without a movie.
Yeah.
They could still make like a show or something. I was thinking like out of it.
Yeah, this one they could probably do like an animated special. Like if, just could sense like some
I just love to see things like Shizor being brought into canon.
Yeah. I have a feeling they might, since they've like done that with Thrawn.
Well, they had him. Didn't they have him a little bit in Clone Wars, or like a glimpse of his race?
I think so.
Yeah.
And I know like they had like an allusion to that like 6 foot tall green rabbit that Han Solo was with in the comics in the Clone Wars too. Yeah, Jackson. Like they had like his like skeleton like on in some episodes. So I was like, oh, I guess he died.
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, some of the stuff on this, like I remember like Dash Rendar like being like talked about like a lot, and for some reason I remember specifically like I think one of like again like I think one of like our friends like in elementary school, I think I had found out accidentally that like their school computer like sign in password was Dash Rendar. Like that's what their password was. And
back
I was like, oh,
when passwords were way less complicated.
yeah. But that's like another weird random memory that I have connected to like that character name. It's just that
I remember the name, but I had no recollection why I remember the name.
Dash Rendar sounds like something that like the local news would call like something to do with like their weather report. And now to the Dash Rendar.
I thought it sounds like a speedy version of rendering in Photoshop.
That too. That could work. Yeah, but and what's kind of almost confusing too is that famously there's John Knoll at
Yeah, that kept
at,
confusing me when I was
at
researching
Lucasfilm,
it.
and then but who worked on the video game is John Knowles. And I remember there's something else that I watched too, like a guy at one point was like talking about both of them, like within this one paragraph, and I got really confused for a second. I was like, wait, what?
Have I gone
John,
cross-eyed?
yeah, but but yeah, like that John Knowles, he like worked on was it like the um what was it the
I think it
the
was.
Trooper computer game, like the
Dark
what was it?
Forces?
Yeah, Dark Forces. Dark Forces, and he worked on this, Shadows of the Empire. And then after that, he like they handed off basically the code from the Shadows of the Empire 64 game for them to make the Rogue Squadron Nintendo 64 game. And then he went on to also then develop the Pod Racer video game too, which that's a whole other thing. But that Pod Racer game was awesome, and especially the arcade version of it where you get to sit in what looked like Anakin's Pod Racer.
There's an arcade here that
So that
has
is
that
it.
still. Yeah,
Oh man, if I was ever
it,
rich, that would be like one of the arcade games that I'd want in there, just because it like looks like that.
it's a cool looking machine.
Yeah. What were so like with the whole like Shadows of the Empire storyline? What were some of your favorite elements of it? Did you read the book, Justin, or did you read just the comics, or did you do
I
all of it, the
mostly like.
video game, comics, and the book?
I remember it was mostly looking through comics at like the grocery store a lot, and then I was always fascinated by the covers of the books, like tied into Shadows of the Empire, because there ended up being
Yeah.
like the primary book, and then side stories and stuff. And I was just like always fascinated when I was at the library looking at those. I was just like, but I was like, no, those are too old of or high of reading level for me because I was like 5, 6, can't.
Oh,
I'm a little bit younger than you guys.
Yeah, we
Uh,
were 10-ish.
yeah, and
yeah.
so, but then the action figures was like the big thing for me, grow with that franchise and how much of an impact those figures ended up having on like just what I thought Star Wars could be
Hmm.
outside of just the three movies at that time. And like that's where it opened me up to the ideas of just going past like looking at it from like the space knights with
Hmm.
the Jedi's and that where I love the idea of watching something more where not necessarily a solo film, but those other aspects of the universe now
Yeah.
where we get to explore a whole Mandalorian kind of era. And then we have now Jude Law's series, and like that's what opened me up to it was
Yeah.
Shadows of the Empire.
The other thing I kind of like about this is that, or is kind of interesting, is that they didn't have as tight of a grip on like the lore and canon, but this is kind of around the time where they were trying to kind of like rein that in. And I thought it was funny like how they ranked it. Like the top tier of the canon was um like G,
George Lucas canon.
yeah, like yeah, George Lucas canon, and like the bottom of it was like uh and like non-canon were like what if stories, like what if like Luke missed like
Yoda
taking out the
crashing the
Death
Death
Star.
Star into
Oh
Coruscant.
yeah, that was crazy. I was like, man, they need to do like the same way they did like the
What if
Marvel What
series?
If animated series. They need to do like a Star Wars like What If animated series or something to that degree. Like like what if Anakin didn't fall to the dark side? Like there's all
Hmm.
like these cool stories that they could do
What if they cut
as
his
like
other hand off?
yeah. What if Obi-Wan fell to the dark side? What if Qui-Gon didn't die? Like there's so many things that they could do with that, but I think that'd be interesting. But the other thing I thought was funny was that like how different the story was from each medium. Now there's like these little different changes, and I think some of that was just specifically because since Shadows of the Empire was supposed to come out as like one of the launch games for the
Yeah.
Nintendo 64, like Nintendo nicely asked for certain things to be the game,
Yeah.
because I guess like originally it wasn't even going to be Dash Rendar. Like the game was going to focus on Boba Fett as the main playable character.
Hmm.
Uh, but then like they had to be like an exclusive character to the system for like a year, so that meant like they couldn't have like any of the uh, like already established characters from any of the films in there as that. Uh, and then like just like how his character design went from like people how they wanted to do it from the books, and then how they had to specifically design it for the game just so he didn't look like crap in it
For the
because of like
polygons.
yeah, for like what polygons looked like in the mid to late 90s on the Nintendo 64. So he has like those huge shoulder pads mostly because of like how they had to design him for the Nintendo 64. uh but then like yeah, like the story differences just between like the game where like he wouldn't just like randomly disappear like I guess he would like in the comics or like the book for like periods at a time.
Hmm.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. uh and then like they had this whole thing with I don't know because I don't think they don't ever play with it too much in the films, but it's like almost essentially like a like out of Blade Runner with like Prince Seizur's like android, like essentially like human replicant like droid that he has that's almost kind of like he's because Prince Seizure is kind of like a sexual deviant kind of dude. He's kind of like freaky. So he's like spitting out those like pheromones to try to get Princess Leia to like make out with him and stuff, and then um he's trying to do stuff with his droid. So some some stuff going on there.
Some problematic stuff, you know.
Yeah. Uh Weird segue, but before I forget, was that I did like that Drew Struzan did the art for uh basically like the main art they used to like across like the books and like the music that they released because he had done like the posters for like the special edition re-releases, and then would go on to do the prequel art to it. I mean, outside of he was like a legendary poster artist, so it was cool to see him do like this art for Shadows of the Empire as well. Uh, the the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting here too is I like how they have like these little kind of things that they knew that they would want to try to like loop back around to like what you see in Return of the Jedi.
Mhm.
So like they have like this thing in there where like Vader's trying to teach himself how to breathe
Right.
without his helmet on. Just using like pure anger to power himself through that. And I guess it was more or less just a way so that they could explain a way that's like, oh, that's how he could take off the helmet at like the end of Return of the Jedi and talk and not be like,
Right.
like, like, but although I mean he was already dying there
Yeah, I
anyways.
mean, it's not, I would never have thought anything different, and
Yeah,
I didn't had not read having not knowing the storyline of Shadows of the Empire. So
yeah.
that scene is just like he was dying. So that's what I always thought.
And then sometimes he had eyebrows, sometimes he didn't have eyebrows.
They're,
Sometimes
those
he was
are they're
special
tricky.
shots.
Eyebrows are
Sometimes
hard.
he's Hayden Christensen. Was there anything else like besides Dash Rendar that like stood out from the Shadows of the Empire story that you want to specifically talk about at all, Justin?
Well, we talked about Prince Caesar here too, and like those are the primary two. Just I wanted to also say how they went with the idea for this too is to be able to have a character, a protagonist, a leading character that they could kill off, and
Mhm.
it
Yeah,
wouldn't affect the canon in any way. And that's where Dash Rendar's whole thing came from too. Where, as we know currently from like Legends standpoint, is like he's just took the chance to appear dead and had just
yeah.
disappeared himself. And I think that's actually kind of a cool way to end things. So like he could always come back in other ways if they wanted to.
Yeah. That's almost kind of like how they had gone for a while with like Ahsoka's storyline, where like we know we don't see her like in like the original trilogy. So like a lot of people for like a long time watching Clone Wars are like, oh man, she must she must die or something. But
I mean, that was my whole thing going into Clone Wars originally when we got introduced to her. I'm just like, I don't want to watch a child like get emotionally connected to this child and then have it
yeah,
die.
Right.
but yeah, again, because that would have been like another way for to help like with show like how Anakin was falling to the dark side with like losing yet another person that was important to him.
Mm-hmm.
But was there anything else that stood out from the like any of like the books or the video games or anything like that you wanted to speak on?
Watching all the clips and stuff from the video games, it just like bared such a resemblance to Doom, Wolfenstein 3D. It's just like you forget how the graphics were because where they are now in
Oh
games.
yeah,
And when you look back, you're like, we thought that was good. Like,
right.
We thought that was amazing.
I know it's just like,
We thought that
holy,
was lifelike.
geez,
I thought it was
craziness.
I thought it was funny how when he was talking about developing the game, uh, like we were saying, like we had to take this one image of like a texture and like stretch it out over like such a large area and repeat it that it kind of did not age very well
Mhm.
because but he's like but it also kind of gave the game like its own kind of look
Mhm.
because of that. Um, so
No, it's
yeah,
this
like
the whole this whole book. I've always wanted to read it. I just never pulled the trigger. And ever since I first heard about it, and then just reading the synopsis, watching people describe it and talk about all the bullet points makes me want to read it more. And as much as I dislike having more Palpatine stories, it's interesting to see him have Shizor there in the background when he's talking to Vader
yeah,
and like have that whole like dynamic between Vader, Palpatine, and Shizor.
yeah, it's kind of like Palpatine like back on his BS from like the prequels where he's like I need to have a backup apprentice just in case this one doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
So like he's like, oh okay, so they killed or he thought they killed Darth Maul. So he's like, all right, I need Dooku. All right. He's always like working on Anakin kind of in the background. He's like, all right, well, I had Anakin kill Dooku, so uh and then like Grievous is kind of like not really a Jedi or dark side, but he's kind of like just kind of like a side character that like Dooku kind of sort of trained to use the lightsabers, but not,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
He was that I always view Grievous as like the proto Vader in a way
yeah.
because he's
Yeah,
take because it's like to use that mechanical side with something biological and
yeah,
still have it
definitely.
be formidable.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she hasn't been in live action at all yet, but like Asajj Ventress with Dooku. Um, so like even like the side apprentices have their own side apprentices.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole rule of two is more like a rule of multiply by two. It's almost more like a Hydra than like you cut off the head and two more
Yeah.
shall return in its place. Uh, but yeah, like because that's not really like present in like the original trilogy at all.
No.
But we do see it like more like in the prequels and then like Clone Wars and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But I did
Well,
like that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I feel like that goes to the underhandedness of the Sith. Always
Mm-hmm.
because it's
Yeah,
always about you're trying to get ahead of the person that is ahead of you. And so you would have your apprentice because you want to be ready to be the master from being the apprentice. And but then you don't want your apprentice to ever get too strong where they want to become the master.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically like they're like Boy Scouts are always being prepared.
Or Batman.
Or Batman.
But,
There you go.
Batman
No,
could definitely. Batman's definitely a Sith.
or Scar from Lion King, because he sings the whole song about being prepared. Jeremy Irons would definitely be awesome in like a Star Wars film, by the way, too. Like
Only if we get Jim Cummings to do all the singing.
Well, there you go. All right, let's make that movie.
All right.
Star Wars the musical.
Jeremy Irons for the Skeleton Crew confirmed.
I'd put Jeremy Irons as Darth Plagueis.
There you go. Nice.
That's what I would go as. But still have it be a musical.
Yeah, just cast Jeremy Irons in The Acolyte, and you can be Darth Plagueis in that.
Last thing I remember Jeremy Irons from was Aragon. So
he was Alfred in the Justice League.
I forgot about that. I blocked that crap out.
I did too. I was thinking last time I remember Jeremy Irons was in Law and Order SVU.
Hey, there. Oh no, that's not. Never mind. That's Gal Gadot. I was gonna be like, there. Wait. Oh, never mind. Somehow I got Gal Gadot and Jeremy Irons mixed up.
Wow, where is your mind?
Hey, Jeremy Irons could be Wonder Woman if he wanted to be.
They are both very attractive in their own way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But speaking of attractive people, the other thing I recently watched was the Obi-Wan Kenobi Jedi's Return making of documentary that they added to Disney Plus back on Disney Plus Day on the September 8th. And it's so like they've done like those Disney Gallery making of. So that's the only kind of thing with this. It's kind of different. It's like just I guess like the branding of not like calling it Disney Gallery Obi-Wan Kenobi instead of just calling it Obi-Wan Kenobi: A Jedi's Return. But what's kind of cool about this is that it's like if you liked any of those, like speaking about like the making of like the Mandalorian or like Book of Boba Fett, this goes kind of in depth about like the whole production of putting this together, like how it started as a film, then became the show. Goes a lot into Ewan's experience with the show. It's funny that you find out like like how Return of the Jedi was called Blue Harvest when it was in production. Obi-Wan Kenobi is called Joshua Tree, and like they even had like production masks that they were wearing that said Joshua Tree on them too, which I thought was interesting. But like a lot of it is shot like with them in front of like the volume, like watching scenes from like the prequels or like the original trilogy, which is kind of a cool way to like watch any of that stuff. And there's a funny bit in there too where like Hayden and Ewan are watching something from Revenge of the Sith, and it's like right after Anakin jumps over Obi-Wan, and he's like, Hayden's like, you told me that you had the high ground. I didn't listen to you. And Ewan's like, if I had $1 for every time somebody told me that I have the high ground. So it was just funny like listening to them have like just kind of like offhand like funny conversations like that in there. It was just cool to see like how close they actually like how their real life relationship kind of mirrors more of like the brotherly relationship that Anakin and Obi-Wan have like while they're actually like getting along and stuff. So it was cool to see all that, and there was awesome to see them like doing like the like dual sparring during like production and whatnot. There's a lot of cool stuff in there with like Moses Ingram talking about like really wanting to play Riva in the show, and like how there's not really a lot of dark side female characters like within the Star Wars universe. So she was also happy to be able to bring that to life in the show.
But is she dark side? Is Riva dark side?
That's what. Well, that's what she said. But then she's like, ends up becoming. She says something like that, but then she says that like Vader's here on the dark side, Obi-Wan's here on the light, and then uh that Reva's kind of somewhere here in the gray a little bit. Um,
Because it's
what?
like, yeah, you think she's dark side to start with, but it's a whole ploy to just get Vader to her so she can kill him.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, because there's like this whole bunch of stuff in there too, like with like the kid that played Luke and the kids that played Leia.
Hmm.
It's also funny to just see Kumail and O'Shea Jackson Jr. just geeking out about getting to be in Star Wars.
Hmm.
And Kumail said he was playing his character as if he was a Jedi fanboy. So he's like, it wasn't that hard because I just basically played it as if I was myself faking being a Jedi, but I was actually in a Star Wars show faking being a Jedi. Um, but yeah, I really like this. I would definitely recommend it to anybody that liked the Obi-Wan Kenobi series.
Yeah, it's on my
Or if you,
list.
it's about an hour long too, so um,
I
yeah, an
might
hour.
pop that on tonight.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. I always like this stuff. I haven't watched the Book of Boba Fett one yet. That's the only one I haven't watched. I need to watch that one still. But I like these. I like the Marvel Studios ones assembled that they do too. Um, I just this is the kind of stuff they don't put on bonus features anymore on like
Yeah.
physical releases or anything like that. That's kind of like the downside of more streaming stuff is that there's less and less content like this. So anytime that they do still release stuff like this, I'm very happy to check it out.
I see. The more I'm sitting here thinking Shadows of the Empire, and then you mentioned Book of Boba Fett, the more I'm thinking they missed an opportunity with Book of Boba Fett to include his story from the Shadows of the Empire. Have
Oh yeah.
because
Well, I
there's
mean, if they do a season two, they could always have Dash Rendar show up in season two.
because
I mean, there's always that talk that was Dash Rendar's ship in the battle at the end of Rise of the Skywalker.
Everybody's ship was in that. The Enterprise was in that shot probably. Actually, Enterprise probably was in that shot because the Millennium Falcon I think has been like in like backs of shots like in a Star Trek. I know R2's been in a shot of a Star Trek film.
I mean they could exist
So
at the same time. You never know.
yeah. But was there anything else you guys wanted to say before we wrap up for this episode?
Skizor is a pervert.
Yes. Yes, he
Just
is.
just the more you read about it, the more you see what he's done. It's just he's just such a pervert.
Yeah. We need to get Chris Hansen in to go talk to Prince Caesar.
Or at least somebody from HR.
Yeah.
Is there an HR department in the Empire?
Oh, there should be. I feel like you don't have like the manpower to have a Death Star without there being a HR department.
Just like Vader, you choke someone again. You got to stop this.
It's probably Richard E. Grant. He's probably the head of HR.
That just reminds me of that scene in from Obi-Wan's where they're in the Mustafar like the palace there. They're in who was it? The lady who helped them escape, who was like the underground train of Jedi's.
Oh,
Forget her
Talia?
name.
Or no?
Yeah. She's like sneaking around because she's like in the Empire, but she's working for the good guys. And she goes into that comm room essentially and like kills the guy. And the other guys just sit
Oh,
there
yeah.
like, none of my business. Just gonna keep
like, nope.
working.
Not getting involved. He's like, I do that, then I got to deal with all this other stuff. So nope.
It's like I don't got time for paperwork. Like, just
It's like, right, just gonna back away.
I'm doing my job. Like
You
See
do
guys
you,
later.
man.
He's like, hey, we're all bad guys here. You want to kill somebody else? You're already a bad guy. I don't give a crap.
I signed up for this. Like, I'm not dying today.
Yeah.
I was promised a college education out of this.
Yep.
I'm just here to do my time.
Oh, that's all. Yeah, Sylvie says so too. That's the last thing I'll say about Shadows of the Empire was that it also explains how many Bothans died to get this information to them in Return of the Jedi. The Bothans were not the people that died in Rogue One in A New Hope. Because a lot of people still mistake that for some reason, even though. Anyways, so you can leave us a review on the podcast catcher of your choice if it allows you to do so. We're on a podcast, and Spotify will usually let you review us there. Anywhere else lets you do so. You can find the show on social media at Twitter and Instagram just by searching at HoldoPod. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube by searching for the HOLDO MANEUVER podcast. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter just by searching for my name, which is MarcVibbert. And Mike, where can they find you?
Just anywhere, usually in the sandwich line. But Twitter, Instagram at Michael Soren. Last name is Sawran. Just give that a search. I usually have my middle initial in there. Don't follow that other guy without a middle initial. You'll be sorely disappointed.
And then Justin, where's the beef? Where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Beef Gyorfi. That's beef_GYORFI. And yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at for social media these days.
And then you can find another Justin, our editor, on Instagram and Twitter at Bactor, BACTOR. And then if you want to email us, I think this is an appropriate time to end the podcast since I'm being able to fail at speak. What? Wow. Yeah, failing at speak. As Yoda once said, failure is the best teacher. So email us at holdopod@gmail.com.
You'll get there.
And as always, we are grateful to George Lucas for creating the Star Wars universe.
Thank the maker.